Hello, sleepers. This is Hobo here with a relatively quick rundown of the 2 hour and 20 minutes Dune Awakening Devstream number 3, covering building, a little bit of crafting, some of the story, and the Landsraad and the exchange. So first off, they talked about the beta weekend being the 9th through the 12th. It's not going to be a full-on everybody can get an open beta, which it kind of sounded like in Devstream number 2. But anyway, you can request access through the Steam page for the game, or from the Dune Awakening website, or some of the big streamers are giving away beta keys. They're also going to give a ton of beta keys during the PAX live stream on the 10th of May, which apparently, so you're only going to get a couple days of the beta if you get one of those keys. They said the higher chances you can try all avenues to get a key. So obviously they're using it to promote the game. You can get unique architecture by pledging to either Atreides or Harkonnen. There's also faction-specific ground cards. Large bases have property tax you have to pay bi-monthly. There's a blueprint system for bases where you can easily make a copy to either move your base to another location or to sell your base blueprint on the exchange, or you can give it to your friends. Tasha hosted the dev stream. She started out with Leo, the lead game designer on building and social systems, and Tor Eagle from marketing. So they said the goal of the building system is, one, to have the freedom as in Conan Exiles, but for the building to be more persistent than in Conan Exiles, and to find a balance between the two. There's many more blocks in each building set than in Conan Exiles. There are 4 building sets at launch, more later. Plus, there's the Cholm Shelter, Cholm Facility, Harkonnen, and Atreides. Plus, there's the Kaladin building set if you buy the Ultimate Edition. So there's actually 5. So to start building, you place a sub-fief console down first. If you've played No Man's Sky, it's like putting down a base computer. And that gives you a small territory. There is advanced sub-fief, which is going to claim a bigger territory. And then you can expand that territory out to up to 6 sub-fiefs to build a very large base. You can also give permissions easily for public access to your base and your stations, or to your friends. There is a cap on the building pieces depending on the level, how many sub-fiefs you have. You have to claim sub-fiefs horizontally and vertically. When building, you put down the projection pieces first, like a hologram, and you can build your whole base that way. You can walk on the pieces, the holograms, and then you fill it in with resources later. Like in Conan Exiles, stability comes from foundations. You need generators to power the base. You can add multiple generators as your base grows. You also get access to wind turbines to increase your power capacity. Just like most things in the game, it's better to build at night to get out of the sun and dehydration. You can easily move placeables like in Conan Exiles. There is a piece picker like in Conan Exiles. So, say you're building foundations, you want to switch to walls real easily, click the wall with, in Conan Exiles, it's the middle mouse button, and then it changes to wall. And you go back and forth. It really speeds up building. When you destroy a building block or station, you get all your materials back. This is absolutely awesome quality of life thing. They have base remote pulling of resources from boxes. So you have your base territory, you put all your resources in boxes, you could build and pull resources from the boxes without having to constantly go back and forth and put stuff from the boxes into your inventory and then build. They showed mining in ground cars versus just doing it on foot. You can also do cooperative mining that way. So you unlock the Cholm Shelter and the Cholm Facility through the just knowledge menu, whatever it's called in this game, like in Conan Exiles. But to unlock the Atreides and Harkonnen, you have to pledge to one of those factions. You can actually get both building sets by pledging to one, getting the building set, and then betraying that house and pledging to the other one to get the other building set. And they actually work together to build. There are some pieces that aren't compatible, but for the most part, you can mix them together. This is really cool. There are half-height walls to make for more interesting building. The building pieces, like the foundations, are significantly larger than Conan Exiles. The gates are truly massive. so that encourages large building and makes it quicker. The higher end building sets have more blocks than the lower end sets. In addition to the wind turbines, which is the next level of progression from the generators, there's also moisture traps to help build up your water supply. They showed off the fabricators and talked about fabricator progression. The first one is very small. The biggest one to make like your vehicles and stuff is very large. The bigger the base, the more power it takes, obviously. Base menu has info on your power grid, usage, and available power. You can also fuel your base remotely that way. Like I said, you have multiple generators. There's tons of decorations, faction-specific decor. You can easily copy your base. Like I said, it becomes an item in your inventory. That is a good system for putting down a weekly deep desert base. They show off the Chom decor, and then they're showing off a base, and the guy's flying around significantly with the suspensor, like pretty high. I don't know if he had like admin sheets on, but I mean, you can almost practically fly. A worm will eat a base built on open sand. You probably know that. They showed off how ornithopters boost, and they will overheat, so you have to time that. Ornithopters can have scanners and weapons and stuff. They showed off a massive base on 6 land claims. They said fighting for land claims at the start of the new week is going to be a big in-game activity in the deep desert. There are faction-specific ornithopters. The Kaladin Palace building set that comes with the Ultimate Edition is fully functional with decorations and building blocks. The Harkonnen and Atreides architecture is very different. The Atreides is very desert-like what you saw in the movie in Arrakis. The Harkonnen is very like harsh, black. It's very much like the Stormglass building set in Conan Exiles. They then showed off, they had a beta builders contest, which we voted on in chat. That was pretty cool. Some really amazing giant bases. They then had Leia and Nils to talk about narrative and cinematics. It is an alt history you probably know. And Lady Jessica decides to have a daughter, so Paul Atreides is never born, so everything that happens from his birth doesn't happen. So it's the same world, but Leto's alive. All the Harkonnen brothers, the Baron, etc., are alive. It's 10 years after the Battle of Arrakis, so what you see like in the movies and stuff, or if you've read the books. But after that, completely different. Duncan Idaho's still alive. You can interact with him. So the alt history gives freedom and agency to the players and dynamic events. The Herbert estate did sign off on all the stories, so that's important to protect the lore. But of course, with an alt history, you don't have to worry about affecting anything that happened after the Battle of Arrakis. But they didn't take it as a free pass to completely make it inconsistent with Herbert's world. So the main story at the beginning of the game is intended as a tutorial, but once you work your way through that, you're not into story, you're just trying to work your way to end game, you're just a PvP or whatever, you can just move on, do your progression, and get to end game at that point. But your story element does determine your starting ability when you pick your school when you create your character, but you're not locked into a class. There are storylines around the schools. When you interact with the trainers, you have to help them to get them to train you. Most or all of the cinematics are fully voice acted, but they said they aren't intrusively long. Your gameplay is not going to be interrupted very long. There's a Communinet radio, which is going to give you lore world building passively while you're out farming or fighting or whatever. You can listen to that. In this universe, the Harkonnen city of Carthage on Arrakis has been destroyed, and they're rebuilding it elsewhere. And they said some of the Overwatch and League of Legends cast do the voiceovers in Dune Awakening. The good guys and bad guys aren't as clear as you think in the Game, the Atreides, you think are the good guys if you're not deep into the lore, and the Harkonnen are the bad guys. And that's really changed if you look back in their history, thousands of years. Not always clear cut. They then had Joel, the creative director, and Ammar, senior designer on Landsraad and Worms. They talked about the exchange. It's connected to all Hagas on your world. So, the worlds have multiple, they call them internally sieges, which are your Haga basins. Those all connect to one deep desert. They all connect to one exchange. They all connect to one Landsraad, which we'll talk about in a second. They all connect to those social hubs of Harko Village and Arakeen. They talk about architecture can be a profession because of the exchange. You can build elaborate bases, make a copy of it, sell that on the exchange. Now, these copies are just one-time use, so if someone else wants to build your base, they can't just use the copy that someone else bought. Which, on the other hand, if you're not into building but you want a really cool base and you gain wealth, you can just buy the blueprint to do that. You can also be an explorer by profession. You can go out into the deep desert, survey, make these charts, which also become an item in your inventory, and then sell them on the exchange. So that's a pretty cool PvE activity in the deep desert. Of course, you're going to have to avoid the big guilds and so forth, fighting over territory and spice. So yeah, the unique schematics have limited runs, so you can either sell the schematic or you can craft the weapon and sell that directly on the exchange. People who want to completely avoid PvP can buy the PvP loot on the exchange. To access the exchange, you got to go to Harko Village or Arakeen, the social hubs. You also have to go to the social hubs to pay your taxes. They then talked about the Landsraad. So in the lore, it is the High Council that influences the Emperor. And on Arrakis in Dune Awakening, the Landsraad decrees affect politics, mechanics on Arrakis. There is one Landsraad per world, like I just said earlier. The Landsraad cycle lasts 1 week, matched up with I'm assuming with the cycle of the deep desert before it resets. So basically, you pledge your guild to Atreides or Harkonnen, and then you find these smaller houses. They're still considered large houses, but smaller than Atreides and Harkonnen. And you find their reps, build up some reputation with them, and then you do certain tasks like delivering materials, delivering weapons, etc., and are gaining control points in the deep desert. That will win you those minor houses for the week in the Landsraad. There's 25 of those, and they showed the grid 5 by 5 of all the 25 houses. And as you meet the reps, it'll show you what you need to try to win that house for the week. And as your faction wins those houses, the grid will fill out green for Atreides, red for Harkonnen. And just like bingo, if you get a column or a row or a diagonal, your faction wins the Landsraad for that week. Or if that doesn't happen, the faction with the most houses supporting them wins that week. So some of the requirements to win those houses are delivering raw materials, bikes, exploring, control points in the deep desert. You have to be in a guild to participate, but again, you only have to be solo player to be in a guild, so solo players can participate, so that's cool. So the rewards for winning the Landsraad, the decree is the main reward, which can be access to special vendors for a week for your faction only, reduced resource costs for that week, etc. So each week there'll be a selection of 3 decrees that the winning faction can vote on. Those change. The more active your guild is within your faction, the more decree votes you get. And they will continue to add activities to influence the minor houses and different decrees as we move forward in the game. There are also individual rewards based on your percentage contribution to your faction's efforts. You get these even if your faction loses the Landsraad for that week. Some of these includes things like in-game mats, swatches, and stuff. The Landsraad will not be in the beta weekend because it is in-game. So Joel and Leo then had Q&A. You can mix the faction building sets, like I said earlier, by betraying one and going with the other. This is important. There is no faction-specific chat. The broadest level of chat is guild chat. You can get together with different guilds or individuals for proximity chat, but of course, spies can listen in on you. You can turn off machines to lower your base's energy costs. You can turn off generators to save fuel. One fuel cell lasts 1 hour, so it's easy to know how much you need. You can store up to 3 weeks of fuel to power your shields, which protect your base from being wiped away by the storms. But you actually get 4 weeks because after your power goes down, you get another week before the storm takes your base. They then talked about how do we balance the Landsraad in-game stuff from one side dominating, winning every week because there's just more people chose that faction, or there's many more bigger guilds on one side. They said they have systems in place to try to keep the Landsraad balanced, but they didn't give any details because they don't want guilds gaming that system. There will be a third faction introduced later. You pay taxes every 2 weeks. If you don't pay taxes, they will become overdue. After another week, your shields will be turned off, and as I said earlier, after another week, your base will be wiped away by the storm. So yeah, the base blueprints are one-time consumables. Like someone can't buy your blueprint, build the base you've designed, and then give the blueprint to someone else. You can't go up to someone else's base and make a copy of it unless you have permissions. 3 is the maximum number of bases you can have, but you can get permission to use other bases. There's the awesome abandoned base feature, which the game actually encourages you to use through the tutorial. You build your starter base in the starter area of Haga Basin. You're ready to move on. You click a button, and the base is gone. I don't know if you get all your resources back. You probably do, but I'm not sure. You can be a solo guild, which means you can be in the Landsraad or participate in the Landsraad. If you're building on like a cliff face or a pillar, you need internal walls. You can't just count on the stone walls protecting you from the storm. You need internal walls covering that. You can make bases public. You can't directly move a base, but you can make a copy of it, destroy it to get all the resources back. The vehicles can have very large storage capacity, so you drive your vehicle to your new spot and put your copy of your base down, hologram, and build it. They said the building costs are significantly lower compared to other survival crafting games, which encourages large building and speeds up building. You can place bases very close together from different guilds, but you can't directly connect bases. And you can't build close enough to someone else's base to fully enclose it. Most cave spaces are no build because they have NPCs, etc. There's no digging into terrain, no terrain manipulation. So like I said, there's a 3 weeks you can power your base with the shield, and then another week. So you have a month of decay time if you're going on vacation. But say you want to take a year off from the game, you can actually break down your base, make a copy of it, break down your base, break down all your stuff, take your money, and you can put it in a bank. And I guess that's persistent, just like your character. So you can come back a year later, get everything out of your bank, your blueprints, etc., put your base down, you're up and rolling pretty quick. They are going to have a Reddit AMA on the 6th of May, and you can start posting questions on the 5th. And then again, they talked about all the various ways to try to get a beta key for the upcoming beta weekend. So yeah, hopefully everybody watching who wants to gets a key. I certainly hope I do, and if I do, I'll be bringing some content to the channel as soon as possible, gameplay. But what do you think about all this? Do you think the building system, Landsraad Exchange, seems cool? Do you think it's overly complicated? Do you think it's, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments. So if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and have a good day.